I go to the gym 5 days a week. Now, there's going to the gym 5 days a week and going in there to train with a purpose to get a result. I mean, actually move forward, not just do a lot of stuff and not really see a result. That's like going to work, doing a lot of work and not getting paid for it. You wouldn't accept that for very long, would you? Now then, Alphas, welcome back to the show. My name is Andy Naylor. I am CEO and founder here at Naylor Body Design and host of your Optimal Alpha podcast. Today, we're going to be talking training and how to maximize your progress through a training strategy that you may not have considered. Now, you're either then going into the gym and quite frankly, just box ticking, i.e. you go into the gym, fart around, and walk out thinking, well, I go to the gym. I go to the gym 5 days a week. Now, there's going to the gym 5 days a week and going in there to train with a purpose to get a result. I mean, actually move forward, not just do a lot of stuff and not really see a result. That's like going to work, doing a lot of work and not getting paid for it. You wouldn't accept that for very long, would you? So let's imagine that you do go in and you do train hard. That's relative to every individual. You know, what does go in and what does train hard actually mean? There's different levels to this. I'm now going to make the assumption that you train hard and form is great. Okay, I'm going to have to make that assumption. Otherwise, really everything else I'm about to talk through today isn't going to make a lot of sense because you're not going to need it. So what we're looking at doing is understanding when sometimes we need to take a back step from training, to stop training, which of course sounds incredibly counterintuitive and against everything. Well, we're training to get a result. Well, there comes a point where if we are training hard, progress is going to stall because of how hard we're training, but more specifically, how poorly we may be recovering. Got a DM from someone yesterday about something and saying, I think it's because I'm training too hard. And my response is, I can 99.999% for sure say it's not because of training too hard. And I don't mean that to be rude. It's just that no one trains too hard. Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates probably to one side. No one's really training too hard. Ever. But putting that to one side, there are going to be instances where someone is training hard. Maybe it's starting to feel like banging a head against a wall. Like I'm really training hard. Like food is on point, sleep, stress, hydration, everything is on point. I'm just not making progress. And by progress here, I would say muscle gain. So I'm talking about building muscle, being in a caloric surplus for an extended period of time and damn well pushing training. There then comes a point where we then want to consider a thing called a deload. Simply today, what we're going to talk through is what is a deload, when to deload, why deload, and maybe two versions of this that could be used depending on your circumstances. What is a deload, Andy? What are we talking about? A deload is essentially a planned or unplanned time away from resistance training. It really is that simple. Unplanned doesn't mean it was a problem. It just means we've maybe auto-regulated, fancy way of sort of just, keeping an eye on things as we go and adapting as we go along. We've realized that something is happening and a deload is needed now. Normally, that's how I used to do it, but it used to always fall in the same place. So basically, it's a ceasing of lifting weights, particularly. Not really a back step from cardio or general movement. It's a step back from hard resistance training with the overall aim to regain, if not improve progress through improved recovery. That's a deload. When would we deload? So these are the signs that I used to look for in my own training. And as coaches, we look for in, the clients that we help around the world. It's when progress is fully stalled or even starting to regress. Now, fully stalled, there certainly can be certain movements that we could just get stuck at for a period of time. You might have a push session or whatever session, and you may have 5 movements to do, and maybe one of those has been a bit stuck for a while. Well, that would just be a rotation of a singular movement. Like get rid of that, put something in and start making progress again. So when I say progress, I mean like every session that you go in, you're completely stuck and more than likely actually seeing numbers go backwards. Now, log booking your training is absolutely key to understand this. Well, first of all, if you're not log booking your training, I'm not going to say you're not serious enough, but I mean, what gets measured gets managed. And if someone says to me, well, I remember what I lifted last week, I'm calling bullshit on that straight away. No one knows exactly what they lifted last week. You might remember one or two key moves, but if you're doing 5 movements, 3 to 4 sets, and you're training 5 times a week, that's 20, 30, 40 things. You're not remembering everything, not well enough. So logbooking, when you look and you think, oh, crikey, that felt heavy this week. Like it just felt heavy. And then you look and you're like, I'm 3 reps shy of what I did last week. And then the next set, you're shy. And then the next movement, you're shy. And you're like, hang on a second. I am completely underneath my numbers from last week. Form is the same. That's a sign. For me, it would always fall somewhere to between 5 and 7 weeks. When pushing really, really hard, it would start up about 7 weeks. Like about week 7 of pushing really hard, I would notice my numbers jump back. And I'd be like, okay, I couldn't really get much past 7 weeks. Now, put into perspective, how long have you been training and not had a deload? So then there's 2 things. 1, you could be really desperate for a deload. 2, you could be training like a wet flannel and you don't need it. Then we need to be training at a certain level of intensity. And it's the intensity, it's the volume, it's the fatigue that comes from that, the under-recovering that comes from that then demands a deload. So if you've been training for the last 4 or 5 months hard, for what you think is hard and you've not required a deload, heads up, buttercup, like you're not training hard enough. So I'd have a deload at say 7 weeks. I would then go off and train and maybe get another 6 to 7 weeks in. And then maybe on the 6.5 week, I would then take a deload, because all of a sudden I would just notice progress drop back. And then some of these other signs would come in. My desire to train would go down. My actual get up and, I get to go to the gym today. Like that I'd be like, holy crap, I've got to go to the gym today. And the numbers that I've got to beat are just, it just starts to become less fun going into the gym and less appealing. Sleep patterns could probably become a bit disrupted. So maybe it's just getting a bit more difficult to get to sleep. Maybe sleep is more broken. Maybe you're waking up feeling groggy. Overall stress is maybe higher. Anxiety may be high. Just that overall feeling of just, everything on top of you. That could be a sign that you're very sympathetically toned, which is our central nervous system in fight and flight mode, which if you're training really hard, you're driving sympathetic tone. You're not doing a good enough job of getting back into a parasympathetic tone, which is rest and digest. The longer this goes on, the more just systemically toned you are, the less you're recovering. So sleep patterns and stress are the first 2 things that go. Hunger might drop, and you would really notice this if you're trying to push up and build muscle. Why? Because food is going to be higher. It's generally speaking is always quite a struggle to get food in for most people. Certainly good quality food and consistently. So all of a sudden hunger's dropping and you're thinking, man, I just can't get these calories in. Well, then that's another sign. Maybe reoccurring aches and pains. So you've got a few things that are trying to recover. You've got muscle, which recovers the fastest. You've got joints, and in joints, I would put connective tissue, ligaments, tendons, and then you've got your central nervous system. To me, they are the 3 things that we are trying to balance when it comes to recovery. And muscle will be the thing that, generally speaking, is going to recover the quickest. No question about that. CNS, and I mean, ligaments and tendons, they are, as you get older, they're the things that are going to take the longest to recover. So then you might start getting, aches and pains like elbow issues. I'm not going to say like repetitive stuff, but you just notice that your body isn't recovering. And then I think, as I've already said, a constant inability to fully recover from session to session. You just walk into every gym session feeling like you're completely beat up. Those are the signs. You don't have to tick all of those boxes, but enough of them. When you start to become in tune with these things, you can start to have a good idea as to, okay, I've been pushing really hard. And you look, you make a note of when your last deload was, and then you're like, I don't know, it's week 8. Man, I feel beat up. Everything's going backwards. Yeah, hunger isn't it's like now a 6 out of 10 and sleep's now like a 5 out of 10. Do you know what? Time for deload. Why deload? It's simply alphas. I interrupt this show with a simple message. This show is here to benefit you and your progression to the best version of yourself. But not only just you, it's also here to benefit the people around you, your loved ones, your friends, other alphas in your vicinity. So Why not do a really cool thing today? Something that I would thank you for and maybe someone else would. Share this podcast with at least one other alpha out there who you know would benefit from it. Why not share the information, share the ability for someone else to grow? I'm sure they would thank you. I 100% would absolutely thank you. This podcast only grows by our listeners, our followers doing amazing things like giving us 5-star reviews, downloading podcasts, subscribing, and then of course sharing it with other people. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Share it with one person, and of course drop us a 5-star review, download the podcast, and of course subscribe. And now back to the show. To open up a path to improved recovery for more progress. We're kind of resetting ourselves. We're drawing back, taking a big deep breath in to then push forward. It's like resetting the catapult. We're opening the path up for more progress by allowing our body to fully recover. All of those 3 areas, muscularly, joints, so connective tissue, and also very importantly, CNS. Deloads are very much a CNS recovery. It's parasympathetic, sympathetic tone. Okay. If your CNS is not recovering, your body's ability to drive contraction isn't going to be there. Hence, all of a sudden, what your body's doing is protecting you. So as your CNS, your central nervous system just becomes tired and under recovering, it will start to halt you from making progress, which is a self-preservation system, essentially. Makes sense though, doesn't it? If you can't recover, why would your body give you full power? So it's taking power back, and you notice that drop. We're resetting sleep patterns, stress levels, hunger and appetite, and a desire to train. Right? We're resetting all of those. That's why a deload in place it's very refreshing. That's how it should feel. Finally then, 2 ways to deload. I would also say there's probably other versions of this. These are the 2 ways that I have deloaded, and I'll give you my thoughts on both. The first one is basically a full period away from weight training. So cardio, sport, stuff like that can continue, but it's the heavy resistance training that just stops. None of it. Absolutely none. Normally 5 to 7 days. That's again very person dependent, but that's normally what I would do. It would normally be a week just to make life easy. I don't think I've ever deloaded more than 7 days. If you do this first one properly, 7 days is normally enough. However, the time that you would have used for the gym, you now focus that on actual recovery modalities. So you use that time still. Massage, getting into nature, reading, meditation, yoga, hot cold treatments. Yeah, you do anything that is going to be parasympathetically awakening, for want of a better word. It's all those sorts of recovery things. Anything that is relaxing. You should be spending that hour and a half that you would have been in the gym actively recovering, not watching Netflix, not doing something else that is not going to help you recover. You focus it on recovery. You were going to use the time to go to the gym anyway. Now, the only issue I've found with a full time away from training is, it's very refreshing. But normally when you come back, the first week back into training, you will probably notice that your loading will drop. So if you were using 100 kilograms for something, you might come back in 85 kilograms is where you start back. It won't be the same for everything, but there'll be just some of the bigger moves that for sure will probably just drop down in weight. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but when this used to happen to me over and over again, I would lose that first week and be like, I just feel like I'm playing catch up for the first week, which when you're really focused on progress is quite annoying. Now, it's still better to do that and then for the next 5-6 weeks afterwards make progress. But when you're hyper focused on getting the most out of your training, that week to me kind of felt a bit lost. So then I came up with a second version, which was, so you still go to the gym, you do exactly the same sessions that you would normally have done with the same loading, right? So the weight remains the same, but everything else is 50%. So it's the same weight. So if you finished something doing 100 kilograms or 100 pounds or whatever, you're going to warm up and get to the same weight. You're going to move the same loading, but you will do half the reps and half the set. Now, it depends what you've built up to. If you're a very low volume person, you may still do the same number of sets, but just half the reps. The last time I did this, I was actually working in quite high volume. So I was getting up to 7-8 sets of something, which for me, for muscle gain, worked very, very well. So to come down to say half the reps and say 4 sets felt very, very easy. Now, if you're only like a 2-3 set person, you may still do your 2 to 3 sets, but you're completely halving the reps. Also, no failure reps and 0 forced reps. Well, you shouldn't be needing those anyway, right? Because you're only doing half the reps. So you're really, really stopping short of what you're capable of. So you should leave the gym with a feeling of, oh, I could have done so much more. To me, it used to feel really difficult this week because I would walk out thinking I could have done more. And that's the damn point. If you're going to deload, the goal is deload. You have 2 options. You just stay out of the gym and you do all these other things. And I would suggest trying that one first. That would be the first one. Get out. If you're training hard enough, get out of the gym and do a full deload and put your time into parasympathetic based recovery sessions of some sort. And then see how well you rebound afterwards for a couple of cycles. Then if you want to try the 50%, it's going to be more challenging and you need to be more disciplined because you're now still in the gym, but you're really holding back. But the goal is when you've done your 5 to 7 days of this weird like 50% week, the week out you should have recovered and you should still put some time into massages, nature, reading, meditation, yoga, hot, cold. You now need to put additional time into that, I would say. But then after 7 days, when you go back to your regular training, you should be at the same weight and you should not lose the first week. If you're not needing them, then I would suggest you're not training hard enough because after a period of time, I think everybody training hard enough has to take your body has to take a step back to then continue taking a step forward. So I hope that has been of some use. It's not difficult to make progress with your physique. And I mean real progress. I'm 45. I'm in a caloric deficit at the moment, so I'm dropping body fat. So I'm not looking to build muscle. The training that I'm doing is to maintain and keep the muscle that I've built. However, if I went back off into a building muscle phase, things like deloads would come back in because I would push so hard, I would break my recovery. It would just get to a point where I can't recover. I would take a deload, step back, draw that breath in, and then go again. And it's sort of like these little 5 to 7 week cycles. And it also helps focus the mind, I think, in a similar way. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, by all means, let me know. Drop a review. A 5-star review is always welcome. And of course, if you've got a gym buddy or someone you know who maybe could use this information and help them on their journey, by all means, why not share this with them? I'm sure they would thank you and I would thank you. For now, alphas, over and out. Have the best week. I'll see you next week.